Hey everyone, how's it going? All right, you guys, I wanted to talk with you about something. Thank you for checking out my video on my channel, Transparencies. I am Stacy Gold, Minister Stacy Gold, if you will, also known as Oya Gold, owner of Gold Energy Management. And I'm welcoming you to my online journal space, my burlesque space, my just a place where I can do everything that I do in one place. Like I can just come over to YouTube, and if I want to talk about burlesque, I can. If I want to talk about spirituality, I can. If I want to talk about self-help, I can. Whatever I want to talk about, I can come over here to Chaotic Transparencies and talk about. So today, what I want to talk about, I've been thinking about sexuality and spirituality. And I've been thinking about like this whole T.I. You got the T.I. and Tiny thing, allegedly what's going on there. We have the whole Eligio Bishop / Nature Boy / Carbonation thing happening there. There's a strong element of sexual abuse and sexual trauma in that storyline, right? And just in general, sex rituals, specifically in the spiritual community that is brown. I want to speak from that perspective. Yeah, so let's get right into it. So as I'm watching a lot of what's happening in the general public right now as far as sexuality in the brown community, the black community, however you want to put that. I was on Facebook and there was some spiritual practitioners that I know that I deal with the long way, that I support, and there was a general conversation about, if T.I. and Tiny gets the spiritual attention that their soul needs, there may be a way to turn this around. They may be able to be redeemed. There may be some loss, but they still may be able to salvage something as long as they're willing to deal with themselves, right? So I was thinking about that, like how they're doing they're allegedly doing these sexual things with people, whether it be against their will, with their will, whatever. There's this whole sexuality thing happening allegedly with them. And the fact that someone's saying if they do these spiritual things, if they do these spiritual things, they can have a different outcome, a more positive outcome, a more beneficial outcome. So I'm like, okay, all right. And so like let's slow it down before we get into T.I. and Tiny and Nature Boy. I wrote some notes for this one. I'm prepared in a certain kind of way. So like let's talk about how sexuality can be used with spirituality in the first place, because a lot of people aren't aware that there's a place for spirituality within sexuality, within the act of sex. And we have to remember, like, that's been talked about in a lot of holy books from the beginning of time. Genesis, with the snake and Eve and God and the nakedness they didn't want to talk about. It's always been there. But in our society, in Western culture, its power is in the holding back of it, seemingly, meaning we're not going to have sex until, you're married. You're not going to, you shouldn't be a hoe. You shouldn't spread your seed out into the world. So Western society has a lot of things that it says sells that says, don't do that. Don't be having sex. Don't do it to wrong people. All these rules, while the society at the same time is pushing it down your throat. There's constant sexuality in the songs, in the music, in the movies. There's a constant sexual energy in the West that's always prevalent. So my lips feel ashy. So just in thinking about that, like, we are given mixed messages as a collective about sexuality, especially as it relates to like religion and spirituality. You're taught that it's something that should be done in a sacred way amongst people who are equally yoked, if you will, to bring about more people in the realm, to help bring the awareness of whatever spiritual teacher, God, or whatever is funding your spiritual thought. So when we talk about how it could be used with spirituality, spirituality is the base for everything. So sexuality has like different facets to it as far as spirituality is. So you have sexuality that brings things together. You have sexuality that takes things apart. You have sexuality that creates life. You have sexuality that creates death. You know, subtle differences in those things. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I want to get into. Meaning, how is it used? It could be used to destroy. It could be used to create. It could be used to direct. It could be used to control. All of that is possible when it comes to sexual energy. My bra is like, this angle that I'm laying at started getting a little tight. So sexuality is something in the spiritual community that is very relevant to what people are, their aims are, what their goal is. Maybe they don't want you to have the sex so that your vessel could be a certain way for the spiritual lifestyle that is being obtained or followed. Maybe they want you to have a lot of sex so that way the energy is either built up or directed in a certain kind of. You never know. So that's why I think personally, for me, you have to have your own spiritual, sexual grounding in yourself. You got to have your own knowledge of that. Like, who am I as it relates to sexuality and spirituality? Am I a person that doesn't want to mix the two, which means that I look at sexuality as something mundane and physical and human, and then I look at spirituality as something that's heavenly and the upper realm? Like, how am I seeing this? Like, I think everyone should ask themselves that question and figure out, you know, what they got going on spiritually as it relates to sexuality, or sexually as it relates to spirituality. Let's just jump into something else real quick, because I want to stay on my paper. I got my paper, my notes, and everything. So, sex rituals. We hear about stuff going on with, you know, allegedly the Masons, sororities and fraternities. You hear these whisperings and, you know, cults. I was raised in a cult, and there was a sexual element to that. Children were being molested and raped. Women were being raped. Babies was being made. All kinds of stuff was going down, right? We'll talk about that on another video, specifically about the cult that I was, you know, groomed in, raised in, however you want to put that, a part of. So you hear about these rituals, you know, in Hollywood. And when you say Hollywood, everyone instantly says the alleged sex rituals that happen in Hollywood are funded or created by, allegedly, the Masonic groups or the Shriner groups, allegedly, and those types of things, right? Or corporations, you know, allegedly, these types of things. And when you think about Hollywood and sex rituals, it's only two things you could think about: is programming and control. Right? That's what I think about. I also think about with, you know, in sororities and fraternities and sororities and some of these groups, if this stuff is happening, what I want, it's not to say that I think it's wrong or they shouldn't be doing it. I think it should be more education around it. From my own personal experiences and my own personal observations, like, I think if you do a ritual with someone and there's a sexual element to it, whether it's acted out or implied, the energy just put there, it should be some type of like recourse to talk about it, break it down, unpack it. Could you imagine being what you identify as a straight man, and then now you're getting paddlings from your brother, your big brother, paddlings of, you know, he's dominating you with a paddle to be in this organization, and somehow it's stimulating to you. Somehow it's awakening something in you where you're like, you know what? Like, that felt good. And now you're thinking about it, right? And now you're kind of like wanting to experience that some more. And because you have shame around it and there's no one to talk to, you may go about feeling this feeling in a way that is horrible to your soul and your life. Like, now you a gay prostitute. I know that's a stretch. I know I just took you from, I'm in a fraternity, they're giving me a paddle, and now I'm a gay prostitute. But this is what can happen with people. I don't think it's the norms or the, you know, nor do I think it's the exception to the rule. I think that is something we need to look at. You're doing things with a group, and if there's a sexual element or you're using the sexual parts in it, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're in a sorority and you're making the women take off their bottoms and sit on smushy things with their bare bottoms, like, Don't you think it's going to have an effect if you're in a situation like allegedly, like for instance, a Masonic group or a Shriner group, and you guys are doing these charges allegedly, or you're allegedly doing certain practices, saying certain words a certain way, and all of a sudden, like, you craving certain things sexually that are not the norms. Who do you talk to about this? Who do you say, well, man, ever since we did that ritual in the lodge, I don't know what happened, but I'm looking at little boys, little girls a certain way. Whatever. I'm looking at cows a certain way. The way the human psyche, the way the mind is set up, anything is possible. So my thing is not so much to demonize these people or to be like, oh, what's wrong with you? It's more like to say, where is the support system for some of the things that we're participating in and the different ways it can go? Or is it meant to go that way and then just be studied by someone who wants to study, someone who willingly decided to take a certain path, whether they knew or didn't know the full extent of what could happen? You know what I'm saying? So, like, when you having a change in your behavior and your sexual desires after doing certain rituals that may or may not be based in sexual activities, I think it's just something that people need to talk about. Like, not and I'm not saying talk about it with people who wasn't in the ritual. I just think that should be in place. There should be a support system for people who are doing things that are out of the norm, and the support system should not be gaslighting them or minimizing the effects of what has happened. Like, especially if you're doing rituals that include you bringing energies into this realm through portals, and you're using your womb as the portal for women who are having sex with entities, for men who are creating spiritual wives. And when I talk about spirituality and sexuality, it is such a range that we cannot just sit here in one sitting and talk about it. So I'm specifically speaking about cases like T.I. and Tiny, allegedly, where there is abuse or seemingly a lack of control. Also with Nature Boy, like what's going on over there with carbonation and the STDs that have been spread in that community, as well as the abuse of women and possibly children. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, and when I say possibly children, when it comes to carbonation, I'm not necessarily speaking about anyone molesting children. I'm speaking of having children in an environment that may be highly sexually charged, and also dealing with diseases and not following safety precautions so that the children are safe. Meaning, like people having babies, and if they haven't been properly treated, there could be effects long term on the babies that don't even show up until that child needs to start processing information. Or just having children in an environment that is highly sexually charged. Like, children are very close to what we say source energy. So if you have a child in the room while you're having sex, if you have a child in the room while you're watching pornography, if you have a child in the room while you're engaging in certain language, using certain words, that frequency affects the child. This is why I'm not into people cursing around their children. Those words actually have a meaning, and they have a frequency and a vibration. So you using language like fuck around your children, bitch, hoe, nigga, and you're actively speaking like this around your children, it is affecting the way they process information. I won't use the word that you're abusing their child, because you may be ignorant to the fact of the power in what you're saying, especially being the parent or being in a position to have to nurture this child. So yeah, things have an effect on people and things have an effect on children. The effect is different, though. If I hear a curse word that I'm not familiar, if someone says cunt around me, I may be like, ooh, but I'm an adult. I can process that in a way that says, yeah, that's a curse word that comes from, like, Europe or something like that, or Great Britain. I don't know. It's pretty prevalent somewhere else. I'm a little shocked that I heard it here in America. But if I was to hear that as a child, it would have a different frequency. So it's the same way sexuality is. Me as an adult, I might could see something sexual happening and either be aroused or, shocked or be uninterested. If I'm a child or a baby and I'm around this type of energy, or it's in the same house with me, it may be confusing and it may not show up until I'm much older, the effect it had on me, right? So when you're doing these sex rituals on any level, because with me being a spiritual practitioner, I've done my fair share of sex rituals, sexual alchemy, if you will, however you want to call it. And like, I'll tell you a quick story. Okay, so I was married, right? And we used to do sensual alchemy to manifest things. And I noticed that when he became abusive towards me or he was not treating me well, the things that we manifested that were primarily in his use, the Escalade, studio equipment, stuff like that, it would break down. It would break down. It wouldn't work. It would be a problem. But then the things that we manifested that was for me and for the children primarily would go untouched and would still be working. So there's an element too of like you doing these practices. If you're doing a practice with a person, a sensual practice, there's the idea that both of you know what's happening so that both of you can have the benefit. If someone is doing sexual rituals with you against your knowledge and you don't know, guess what? You just don't know. And if you don't have any protection in place or any type of knowledge about, sexual or ritual abuse, religious sexual ritual abuse, ritual trauma, things like that, then you're going to be at the mercy of natural law, meaning someone either hipping you to game or your own system finally catching up and realizing like, nah, we're not dealing with this, and your own inner protection comes to the table. So yeah, I would never do sexual magic with someone and they didn't know. Like, I wouldn't invite you over, light candles, set smells and tones, colors in the room a certain way for my gain off of your energy. But there are people who do this, right? So that's why I want to talk about this, because I think a lot of people don't know that something that is really possible, it doesn't have to be blown out of proportion and made this scary thing. It just takes having a little bit of information, a little bit of knowledge to get to the bigger knowledge and get to the bigger point of it all, which is just manifestation and using energy to get your needs met, whether it's base needs or high level needs. You be the judge of that for your own life. So when I think of allegedly what's going on with Tiny and T.I., I think about sex as power and release, meaning these people are part of a larger organization as it relates to the entertainment business, right? So that's a lot of power. They show up there. T.I. is seen as a sexy man, a sexy, powerful man to many women. Tiny is seen as having access to that power. A lot of people don't think she's that attractive. I think she's kind of cute. When Escape first came out, I wouldn't say I was crushing on her, but I just appreciated her look. I just thought she was so cute. I still think she's so cute, even with all the additives. You know what I'm saying? She's a cute energy to me, but that may be because she's a Cancer and I'm a Capricorn, so I see myself in her in a weird kind of way, the flip side of myself. Anyway, So yeah, when I look at T.I. and Tiny and what's allegedly being said about them and happening with them, allegedly, I think about sex and sexuality and the spirituality that's linked to it being power and release. And the reason why I say, again, power, he's in an environment where he's desired. His status is desired by other men. So there's a sensuality and a spirituality that comes with that. There's a aura that's created by being that type of man. And there's an aura created from having access to that type of man. So I also see release, meaning for Tiny, there may be a release in ego, meaning she's allowed to have her cake and eat it too, if you will, and still have that, level of like fun as a woman. As a lot of women, even though I don't think she's all the way enjoying it at this stage, I think at some point it was fun for them. Yes, it might have been used as a tactic to throw the power around in their relationship, but I think that was fun for them at one point in time. Now it's probably not fun at all, but there's a release, meaning you're a performance artist, you're out here doing a lot of work, people are always in your face, and then you get to have some downtime and release all of that adoration, meaning people are adoring you, people are giving you their energy, people want you, people are just talking to you all the time about how great you are. And I think it may be fun at some point in time to share that greatness with those who may be willing, and allegedly in their case maybe not so willing. I don't know. But my point is, there's a release. And maybe even the fact of, with them being in such a high power position, them being somewhat like not able to move the way they really want to move at times. So imagine feeling like someone is controlling you and feeling like your soul is so tied up with other people's expectations and responsibilities. And then you get to do that to someone else in another way. So to me, there's a release of that power, that of the pain and the stress that comes with that power. There's a release that allows them to experience being that power to other people the way it's being done to them. Meaning, when you're an entertainer, you're not just there to be making the people laugh. You somewhat exist to help corporations and businesses, provide consumption for consumers. That's it in a nutshell. So with that being said, it's a job and it may be tiring, and you may want to exact that power onto someone else. So that's what I see there with me personally, with the allegedly what's happening with T.I. and Tiny, with sexuality and the spirituality of it being used as a source of power and release. And that release might have been real sweet in the beginning, but now that release is not a release anymore, because things have changed energetically. And right now we dealing with the energy on this realm that you're not going to be able to go around and shout out to Ashera Star Goddess, because like she says, piggyback on people. You're not going to be able to ride someone else's coattails into the forever land at all. You have to ride on your own coattails. So if you feel like someone's using their power against you, you have to figure out how to use your power for you, so that they're not using your power against you, or they're not using your power for their power, unless they paying you something for, or making it worth your while. And then it's not like so much of abuse or a struggle, because it's something that you guys agreed upon that works for both parties. So that's what I see with the T.I. and Tiny thing and what they allegedly got going on. Now, as far as Nature Boy and Carbonation, what I see is sex really very, very, very specifically as ritual and control. So with that being said, this organization, or rather the leader, is doing what most people say, oh, it's sex magic or whatever, right? What they're doing is rituals. They're doing rituals to the aim and the goal of having that one mind, and the mind that they're absorbing or becoming is the leader's mind, which is Eligio Bishop's mind, Nature Boy's mind. So all these people are adopting his mind, and the sexual rituals, maybe even if he's not sleeping with the men, the fact that the men know that if I like this girl, or if I sleep with this girl, she'll be back with him the next day. That's a form of sexual ritual. That's a form of humiliation ritual. So that would make that man be emasculated, so that he's more receptive and in a feminine sense of being, and a low feminine sense of being, to receive what Eligio is doing. And it's sexual in the sense of they know that this woman is having sex with both parties, them and Eligio. But when it's time to talk about it, Eligio will make it seem, or Nature Boy will make it seem like, yeah, she's choosing me because I got the knowledge. I'm the one that has the juice. You don't have the juice. That's like a form of like castration. You're telling another man he don't have the energy to not only please this woman, but basically direct her energy. It's a tuning rod. That's what, that you can't tune her up. You don't have anything of substance to give her. But I do. I'm larger, and I'm smarter, and I'm more spiritual, and I'm the Messiah, is what's being told to these people. So the control aspect comes in the fact that he doesn't even like to have vaginal sex. He says it. If I put my energy into the vagina, then my sperm is going to die and he's using a lot of what I call pseudoscience, because he's under the impression that when you do that in someone's mouth, ejaculate in their mouth, that that the sperm is going to live, as if the stomach acids is less acidic than the acids that could be present in the vagina, or any of the toxins and staphs and bacterias and all that stuff that could be in the anus. So he prefers to have someone be in someone's mouth or in someone's butt. And we're talking spiritually, when it comes to control, anal sex is a great way to create a bind with someone to, I hate to make the hand like that, but create a bind with someone to control their mind, control their heart. It's one of the easiest ways to do it, especially if there's tearing, meaning there's blood, especially if it's force, and especially if there's fear involved. You're creating some trauma bonds that are very, very hard to break, and you will need therapy, and you will need to do some other type of spiritual rituals, if you will, to offset that chemical imbalancement that was created from doing that act with someone who was imbalanced. There's nothing wrong with doing binding rituals that include anal sex or all these different things. There's nothing wrong with it inherently, but you don't want to be doing that stuff with someone who's out of whack, whose system is not balanced, who doesn't have any sense of real self and power. That's like the last thing you want to do. It's going to create chaos for both parties. So I think with Nature Boy, he's not aware of that because he's having a false sense of winning based on how things are going. Meaning he has not been arrested yet in America. He has not had certain consequences in his mind, so he thinks he's good and all is right in the world. But you can look at him and see that what he's done to others is also working him. You can see it. And I think anyone with eyes, who has, especially if you have a more spiritual eye, or even if you just have an energetic way of looking at things, you can see this person is tormented. They are hurt. They are scared all the time. They are afraid, very afraid. And they're not always thinking clearly or straight. This would be Nature Boy. So his sexuality is not about power and release like a T.I. and Tiny, allegedly, what they got going on. What's going on there in carbonation is all about the ritual of control. And that control is in place so that these people will never, ever look at themselves as the power when they are actually the power source that's feeding someone who doesn't have their own power, which is why they need other minds to eat to become their mind. So it's not like they don't have a brain and they're replacing it with his. They're feeding their brains and their energy and their energetic mental space to him. Hence, why do you think when the young lady Velvet was there is when he did the most profound teaching? When he did the most, like, it seemed like he was so on when she was there as a teacher. Because he's feeding off of certain people's, right now, you can see that he feeds off of these people sexually, and he uses that energy. It's, when I'm looking at it, it's just gross. So it really is gross. When you do this to someone, it's gross. It creates really nasty stuff in the energy field. It creates really nasty stuff in the body. One of the other young ladies in this cult is being hospitalized because they don't even know what's going on. They just know that there was fluid around the heart, fluid around the uterus, cysts, things happening. She's got a drainage tube in her back. Like, it's really unfortunate what happens when you let a parasite feed off of you for so long, especially when the parasite needs the host to be alive, but not necessarily animate. You're looking at some really nasty stuff energetically and physically. So I just wanted to put these things out here, not to say that, that I know everything about this or I don't know. I'm just saying, like, this is stuff that's going on. And if we could maybe look at it a certain way, we might have a conversation about it. And the conversation may either heal some things or enlighten some people. It may bust up some untruths, So if you want to know how to create healthy sexual practices for self and family, I always say, like, if you have children, make sure you talk to your children about sexuality, and not just at a base level of, oh, you can have babies, oh, you can get an STD. Talk to your children and do more research about, like, soul ties, experimenting. You don't, like, your daughter is dating this guy, he comes from a broken home. You don't want her to have lose her virginity to that person, and you got to start being direct with your children about these things. You have a son, and he's probably a virgin, but he's dating this young lady, and she already have 2 children, and you don't want him to be the third baby daddy. Talk to him about this. It's not to say that there's not a bond that could be created from these relationships, but the sexual aspect of it, I think, with parents needs to be talked about more. A lot of brown parents and black parents are afraid or uncomfortable talking to their children about sexuality. And to be honest, it's foolishness. It's foolishness, and it sets your children up to be harmed and hurt and be in situations like a lot of these people in the carbonation situation are under the age of 25. They're young people, and they don't know no better, and they're already coming from situations where they didn't feel understood or talked to or believed in or whatever, that they would choose this next situation, from how they say, from the frying pan into the flame. So with that being said, we need to talk more about sexuality, even with brothers being on the down low, right? Like, if a man is into other men in a certain way or into anal stimulation, I don't think that's something that we should be afraid to talk about. I don't think that's something that people should feel ashamed of, meaning there are women who date bi men. There are women who understand what that is and can relate to it on a certain level where you don't have to lie and you can be yourself, right? But then there's other people in the community that may feel like, I got to hide who I am, but then you're not being aware that that sets someone else up in your life to fail. Meaning, if you're sleeping with men secretly and you're not dealing with it, so therefore you're not wearing protection because you don't want to see yourself as gay. So you have to go through this act in a way where it's happening, but it's not happening. So you're not protecting yourself, you're not being aware, and you're not using your good sense. So now you see a woman that you like, you're with her, and you're not thinking about all this homosexual sex you've had unprotected. And if she gets sick, or if her mind starts tweaking in a certain way, where is the responsibility? And it's the same thing for women. I'm a bi woman, and there was a time when I was younger where a lot of women who were either married or proclaiming to be straight were trying to have relationships with me on the side. And I mean, I did it for a little while, but it wasn't fulfilling for me. And also, I didn't like being treated that way personally. I didn't like being told, oh, my husband's coming home, you got to go now. I was not with any of that. I do not make a good mistress or a side chick to tell a little bit of my business. I don't do good with none of that. I'm not good at hiding, and I'm not keeping your bullshit for you. I got my own bullshit to keep. You keep yours, and if you feel like you need someone else to hide it or cover it, don't bring it to me. Take it to the next woman, because I ain't going to cover you like that. I don't cover liars. You know what I'm saying? That's who I am. So if you want to create healthy sexual relationships, you need to have a healthy sexual relationship with yourself. If you want to do sex rituals, start with yourself. One of my favorite rituals is when I was younger and I was trying to get more into myself and things like that. Through my astrology chart and certain information, I got all the gemstones that resonated with my energy. And I found a hollowed out, I'm not sure how you could say this on YouTube or not, but like, I guess you could say a hollowed out phallic toy, sex toy. It was hollowed out. It's a hollow one, the kind that men can either wear or a woman can strap up with, but it was hollow. And I would do rituals for myself of healing, and I would put all my gemstones inside of it. And I created my own powered up, and it was black. It was big, and it was black, and it was hollow. And I put all my gemstones in it, and I would do sensual meditations. I would do my own rituals to manifest the things that I wanted. That was my MO for a little while, and it really helped. I might get back into that. Just as many ways as there are to create unhealthy sexual binds and all this stuff, there's ways to create some really healthy stuff. So do your research, ask questions. I always tell people, ask questions when it comes to spirituality. If you're a person watching this and you're considering going to carbonation, ask those questions. How do you all deal with STDs? Is there a possibility I could be passed around? If you don't like me, will you send me to another man? I know who you are. Knowledge does not have to be passed through sex. Knowledge can be passed just like how we're doing right now, talking. Because the truth about sexuality as it relates to humans is that sex is all around us. When we get close and we're breathing each other's energy, it's a form of merging. When I hug you and you hug me back, our molecules do a dance that we can't see, which is like merging, or a form of interaction that is like interactive, like sex is. When you get around people who have a lot of mental energy and you're having a great conversation, as they say, you're fucking my mind. We're having intercourse of the mind. There's so many ways to connect with people without putting yourself in position to be harmed, getting diseases and things, being raped, being molested. And as it relates to allegedly what's happening with T.I. and Tiny, and what allegedly may or may not happen in certain fraternities, sororities, Masonic, Shriner, whatever you want to call these organizations, just know what you're about. Know who you are. And if something is changing about who you are after you've participated in these rituals and you don't feel safe to talk to the people who actually, spearheaded the ritual, get you a good therapist. Get you a good spiritual practitioner, someone like me that you could talk to in confidence, who may have the knowledge to help you get past that, get over that, get through that, utilize that. You don't have to go through certain things and be alone. I don't know why people like to feel like, if you've been through something, and I guess it's because, especially in our community, there's the shame that is around sexuality, and especially if it's on some different stuff, it's some different type of sexuality. Like if you tell your homegirl, I feel not good, I did this ritual with this guy, we lit some candles, he had sprayed some deer pee on me, whatever. I don't know what people be doing, but apparently they be doing a lot. It's not for you to tell your friend, oh my God, how could you let him do that? It's maybe for you to say, man, I hate that you're going through this. What can I do to help? Do I have any friends or resources that I could lend you to help you? And I don't think that's our first reaction with each other. Our first reaction is like, girl, what? You let him do what? And then some people take your information and go tell others. Some people don't hold those things. They tell other people, and it creates more shame. You know what I'm saying? And shame is what allows a lot of this to go on. Like for instance, someone asked a question like, why wasn't this stuff with the allegedly T.I. and Tiny brought up sooner? And it's like, can you imagine how ashamed you may feel if you saw your favorite celebrity and you was willing to do whatever to have that attention, and now you're in a position to do whatever and you realize, I was just infatuated. I actually don't want to do this. I'm a little scared. But you find yourself having to do it anyway. You're not being told, oh, you could leave. It's okay. I understand. You're being told, nah, you here. Either you're going to get down or you're going to lay down. Allegedly. You get what I'm saying? That could be very, horrible. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine going to a jungle lifestyle with some people who are being spiritual, just to find out the night that you get there, you have to sleep with the leader or leave? Or you sleep with the leader because you're afraid and you do it. And then the next day he's telling everybody, yeah, it wasn't that good. I'm going to give her to you. I'm going to give her to you, bruh. I'm going to give her to you, bruh. And then now child. The point is, you guys, there's 50 million ways to skin a cat. Figure out how you want to skin your cat. Literally, in a way that serves you and is supportive to who you are. These things happen as far as people abusing each other sexually and ritualistically, as far as it relates to religion and spirituality, because we're ignorant. We don't talk about these things, especially in our community. We have to begin to talk directly and openly and honestly about what is occurring in our community. We have to start talking about the uncles who are molesting the children in the family. We have to start talking about the mothers who are sleeping with their sons or practicing emotional incest with their sons. We have to talk to the dads who are molesting their children. We have to talk to it and about it. And we have to stop making it so taboo, because there's a certain aspect of being able to stand up for yourself that's linked to how you feel about yourself. And as a race of people, if you want to go there with the race thing, black, white, whatever, brown people and black people, until we understand the power in our sexuality in a positive way, in all of its glory, from our LGBTQ community to our monogamous community to our poly community, until we understand the power of the sexuality in all of these different groups, our asexual community, our touch me nots community, which is part of the LGBTQ community, our monogamous heterosexual community, until we understand the power of these different groups sexually, there's no way we're going to be able to tap into the actual defense system of ourselves collectively. That's what I have to say about it. I want us to be more open and honest and stop being so squeamish, because people are being hurt in our community, and people are being misdirected, and people are being bamboozled, for lack of a better word. People are being desperate in a certain way. Like, what's wrong with what T.I. and Tiny is doing allegedly if they need a release? It only becomes a problem when they don't have a support system for their appetites. You should have a support system when you have such big appetites, when you have such powerful appetites. You need a support system. I have certain appetites, and there's certain people I talk to about these appetites to help me keep it in check. That would have been, again, the young lady who was over there with Nature Boy, who was trying to do that with him. And in the end, she just had to leave, because you just going to keep doing things that's going to get us all fucked up. And nobody wants to be when you have enough sense, you don't want to be a part of that. You'll leave. You'll leave the environment. I know I left the environment. When my ex-husband always wanted to have ecstasy to have sex towards the end of our marriage, I became hip to the fact that he does not want to sleep with me, and he's using drugs to do it. So I'm going to leave that alone instead of taking it with him. And then we both I'm doing it thinking I'm having an experience with my husband, and I become aware that he's doing it to perform for me. He's doing it so that I don't feel like, so I don't feel, I guess, neglected. But by the time I realize what's happening, I feel beyond neglected. I feel tricked. I feel like I've done something with you that I would not have never done if I knew this was the reason you were doing that, So you never want to take the power of choice away from anyone when it comes to their sexuality. It will not end well for anyone who's doing that. Just putting that out there. It's not going to end well. So that's all I wanted to say. That's all I wanted to share. It was on my mind. I want to talk about it and bring it out. I hope you guys enjoy this. I love to hear your comments below, how you think about it, how you feel about it, what you've noticed. And please feel free to share and subscribe. I enjoy sharing on YouTube. So, yeah, subscribe, like, share, comment, all of that. Y'all have a good one. I'm about to go get me some chicken. I don't even like chicken, but I want some chicken. So, I made hummus, and I made it extra spicy with the fresh garlic. And all I keep thinking about is dipping crispy fried chicken in this spicy garlic hummus. I don't know, but we're gonna make it happen. So you guys have a good one. All right, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and remember to smile from within. All right, I'm Minister Stacy Gold, aka Oya Gold of Gold Energy Management, and my motto is not just to help. My purpose is not just to help you find your purpose, but to help you be it. All right, you guys have a good one. Later.